This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
It's another Ice Guys team season preview video. 32 teams in 32 days rolls along. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and one of our favorites. Always keeps us entertained, informed, makes good live wagers too, and I'm sure I'll have another plethora of those throughout our live bet casts during the season, specifically in the late night hours, which is his common place to join us later in the night. And here he is joining us now to talk the New York Rangers, his beloved blue shirts. John Massey, welcome in. Excited to talk a little New York Rangers hockey.
I always show my great excitement for talking about hockey and the New York Rangers. Obviously, I'm ever the optimist. I'm going to bring so much energy and enthusiasm to this podcast as everyone expects throughout however long it goes, and we'll never get this time back. But it's a pleasure to be here, can't you tell?
It is, and we wouldn't have you any other way, John. There's no question. The New York Rangers, would John Massey, would any of us have them any other way than they are currently constructed right now? Because they didn't make a whole lot of changes this offseason, the New York Rangers. We're talking about a team that obviously last year still had a overall very good year. Obviously, when you talk about getting yourself all the way into the conference finals, you lose to the eventual champion, Florida Panthers. Obviously, a phenomenal season for their goalie, Igor Shesterkin. We'll get to him more later on. But we'll begin with the forward group, where I guess you could say the main offseason change or addition for this team is Riley Smith, brought in from the from the Pittsburgh Penguins in the offseason, of course, formerly the Vegas Golden Knights as well. Florida Panthers very early in his career, now here with the New York Rangers. Someone that they hope is going to be able to be that right wing punch, I guess you could say, offensively with that top line of Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. Riley Smith coming off a year last year where definitely by his standards a decline from what we saw in Vegas, where he had been someone that was capable of 27 goals. He had 26 goals a couple of years ago when that Vegas team won the Stanley Cup. But last year in Pittsburgh, his production declined and dropped all the way to 40 points in 76 games and just 13 goals with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So can he be that reliable offensive contributor now at 33 years old compared to 2 years ago or any of his years with Vegas? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself about if Riley Smith's going to be that able complement on the right wing side with Zibanejad and Kreider. Of course, you've got Lafreniere, I think was one of the bright spots last year for the Rangers, labeled a bust, a couple years ago, even early last year, and then saw him start to show those flashes of why he was taken number one overall. And I think just getting more comfortable with life at the NHL level, and hell, maybe just given more opportunity and used a little bit better too from a coaching standpoint. When you compare, of course, Gerard Gallant to now the first year last year under Peter Laviolette, that definitely might have had something to do with it. But it looks like he is scheduled to be lined up this year with Vinny Trocheck and Artemi Panarin on that second line for the Rangers. We know we saw Lafreniere, who had scored a couple beauty goals in the playoffs, especially in that Florida series. We know he definitely had that flip of the switch last year. Can that other first-round pick have the flip of the switch, or are we just not going to see that switch turned? And I'm talking about Kaapo Kakko, of course, coming off a year of 19 points in 61 games and just 13 goals for the Rangers last year. He's clearly not delivered the goods, considering where he was drafted by this Rangers team. He's penciled in, at least for now, to be the third line for this group with Philip Hedl. Hopefully a full season of health this year for Philip Hedl, and as well as Will Cooley, who's got a little bit of that. Yeah, he's got some offense, but he can play an all-around game, be physical, get in on the forecheck, that kind of thing. You like to see that from him as well. I'll tell you what, if you like crash and bang lines, you might get that on the fourth line for the Rangers this year because they bring in Sam Carrick. If Matt Rempe is going to get some regular ice time this year, that's got the chance to be one of those lines that just drives opponents fucking berserk and nuts. To really, use that physicality that they can bring. And it's going to be very interesting to see. Now, it's going to be who they put with Carrick and Rempe, and they'll probably interchange this. That fourth line's not going to stay static. Probably throughout the course of the season. You could insert a Jimmy Vesey. There's Adam Ernie there. There's Alex Belzile. There's Johnny Brodzinski there. There's Jake Leschyshyn there. Brennan Othman's one of the prospects that's going to be in with this team in camp. And I remember seeing him at the World Juniors for Canada and played very well. So I'm kind of a fan of Brennan Othman. It's whether he's going to get that opportunity right away with the Rangers. He'll probably have to see what he can do as far as trying to make this team in training camp. But I think when you look at the New York Rangers, there's going to be a nice little bottom six forward competition for them in training camp, which is good. Blue line, for the most part, status quo. I mean, Adam Fox, Ryan Lindgren, Keandre Miller, Jacob Trouba, who is I guess the focus of a lot of differing opinions among Rangers fans, how they feel about their captain, Jacob Trouba. But Braden Schneider, Zach Jones, you also have Connor Mackey, Ben Harper, who's a veteran stay-at-home, depth defenseman. You got a Chad Ruedel, same thing in the defensive depth for the Rangers. So they do have some options if there's some injuries on that blue line, but certainly not something you want, because whether they're quality replacements is another story when you're talking about the likes of Chad Ruedel and a journeyman like Ben Harper. Preferably, you don't want Lindgren, you don't want Fox, you don't want Braden Schneider, you don't want Keandre Miller injured at any point, because that six I think is solid. But once you start to mix around with some of these depth defensemen who've been around the block with multiple teams, it's not ideal. And of course, Igor Shesterkin, the heartbeat of the team. I don't think there's much debate about that. Igor Shesterkin is the backbone of the Rangers. A phenomenal season last year. No shame in losing to Florida or Sergei Bobrovsky. In fact, I think in the regular season last year, when he had that rough start, I finally saw from Shesterkin what he's all about as far as his mentality, that he could battle through, struggles early in the season and then just have this incredible second half. What turned his season around? The All-Star weekend. He actually played well. His team played well in All-Star weekend when he was there. And then from that point on, he was a different goalie in the second half of the year. And obviously his playoff performance was phenomenal for the Rangers. Obviously, everything goes to shit if an injury strikes Shesterkin in any way, shape, or form. And that's not to disparage Jonathan Quick or Louis Domingue or anyone else as far as the goalie depth chart of the Rangers. But, you're talking about one of the biggest drop-offs when you're talking about you could put Shesterkin versus mostly anybody, majority of backup goalies, and there'd be a huge drop-off. So this isn't me disparaging Quick and disparaging Domingue. This is just how amazing Igor Shesterkin is. And even after that rough first half, people were starting to worry a bit. No, he's fine. He got it back in the second half, and then the playoffs were fine. Look, the Rangers are definitely, in my opinion, obviously a playoff team, but when you look at they feel like they're a piece or two away from truly winning it all. I think the blue line's still solid. And even if they're not on certain nights, Shesterkin can bail them out with the best of them. My question is there going to be enough in terms of that top line and Riley Smith being the answer? If it's Riley Smith from the cup-winning Vegas season, you might have your answer. If it's not that Riley Smith, you may still be searching for who's going to be up there consistently and get it. They had Jimmy Vesey up there way too fucking much, by the way, last year. On that top line with Zibanejad. It was ridiculous. I mean, and I like Laviolette. Did a great job year one, but that was just way too much leeway and opportunity for VC when he was doing dick all, jack shit in that position on the top line. So it can't be worse with Riley Smith. Will it be a smashing success? That remains to be seen. Alex, we'll turn to you. What do you think for the New York Rangers?
This is an intriguing team, and we've talked about this in a few of these previews where there are teams that, if everyone stays healthy, they're fantastic. And I think that's really the case with the Rangers. You look at this, starting lineup, this opening night lineup that's tentative. This is a great team, and if they could stay healthy all year long and play to their level, this is the team that should once again, get over 100 points, maybe 110 points, be a Metro Division champion, and have a deep run in the playoffs. And if that's the case, you have to at some point break through to the other side, kind of referencing the Doors here. 2 of the last 3 seasons, you get all the way to the conference final, and then you fall short. At some point, we talk about this all the time with a lot of teams that end up winning cups or making runs to the cup final, where the fatigue factor can set in from playing so many big-time games, playing in so many deep series. At some point, the Rangers are going to have to break through and win the East and get to a cup final again with this core group, because you don't want to have another year of falling short with these guys getting older. You see guys like Kreider and Zibanejad. These guys have been around for a long time, played a ton of hockey and a ton of minutes. And like I said, if they start wearing down and start getting those nagging injuries and start, having to miss games, Rangers don't really have that much depth to shore up any issues with the tops, it's the top forwards, top defenseman, or their number one goaltender. So that's the thing that you have to worry about is they know how to pace themselves. They know how to win games in bunches in the regular season, but they're going to have to find ways to get into a second and third and fourth gear once they get past the month of April. And that's really the only thing that I'm questioning on. As far as the regular season, I feel like it's status quo, business as usual. We'll have our spots to bet on them. There'll be a great team total over team. I think Shesterkin's going to have another big year. He's somebody, obviously, you're not going to get much value, but if you want to bet someone to win, with the Vesna, he's never a bad option. And this is a Rangers team, like I said. I like them to get at least over 100 points again this year. I think they'll be at the top. Probably should win the Metro because I'm not, like I said, completely sold on New Jersey being rebuilt yet. And Carolina, like I said, they seem to be kind of in that same windfall of they play great in the regular season, but then the playoffs come around. So it seems like it's business as usual in the top three, and I think the Rangers more likely find themselves at the top of the three in the Metro, and then it's just a matter of what can they do in April, May, and possibly June this year that'll change that. So I don't have anything dead set on futures. This will be a team that we just kind of go through the motions with during the season, pick our spots and bet accordingly. But I think things should be well, at least in the regular season for the Rangers, barring any massive injuries to any key players.
Yeah, and the fact that the thing that benefits the Rangers well in their own division is the question marks. And if you don't believe us, watch the Carolina video we have about Carolina this year, whether they're going to be as good in that Metro division. I think when you look at it as well, the landscape, is there someone else that's going to jump out and nab the Rangers in that division? If not Carolina, I'm not so sure about that at this point in time. So that's certainly a benefit for them. And before we get to John with the Rangers, I do want to point out that I'm on board now after what I saw last year. And I love the fact, too, the chemistry with Trocheck and Panarin that he had. Obviously, 28 goals, 29 assists, 57 points in the 82 games, played a fully healthy season. And the best part about this is we're talking about a guy in a contract year for the New York Rangers, final year of his contract coming up. So there's going to be that onus to build on by far, his best, most successful season of his NHL career. And I'm talking about Alexis Lafreniere, of course. I'm in. I'm on over 62.5 points with him. I'm on over 27.5 goals with him this year as far as season-long player props. I love the situation. He's got chemistry established with his line mates in Trocheck and the Breadman. He's playing for a contract. He's playing for the big bucks. That always stimulates a player to put their best foot forward and have that big offensive season. You don't think fucking the money and the big contract drove Sam Reinhart last year and inspired him and motivated him for the Florida Panthers last year? You better believe it did. And look at the season he had. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have that many goals and points, Lafreniere, but we only need 63 points. We only need 28 goals out of him to cash those props for him to go over his season-long goals and points total, playing with two guys he had chemistry with, playing a full season. He didn't have any injuries last year. Trust that hopefully he can stay healthy for majority of the season, if not all of it. So, yeah, I'm in. I'm now drinking the Lafreniere Kool-Aid here after last year. He showed me a lot. He's great in the playoffs. I'm on the over goals and points for Alexis Lafreniere here that he can build on the 28 goal. Well, actually, what's funny? He had 28 goals last year for the Rangers. Yeah, he just has to match that to go over his goal total because it's 27.5 at Bet365. So I think he can absolutely do that. He had 57 points last year. The point total is 62.5, so he needs to be 6 points better than last year to go over 62.5 points. I still think he can do it, especially if he plays close to, if not a full season, like he did last year. John, floor is yours. Your beloved New York Rangers.
I have this weird thought and counterbalance with the Rangers because the forward group, for the most part, especially when you look at the top six, is getting significantly older. However, they have a lot of young, long defensemen. Schneider, young. Keandre Miller, young. Fox, still young. So you look, Zach Jones played a lot of minutes in the postseason last year. Young Lindgren, they signed to the bridge deal in this offseason. I worry about the hits he takes. I'm worried about the hits Hedl takes. Filipino in a way is an addition for this team. He played, got knocked out in October and didn't play until the postseason. But he needs to be healthy. You kind of worry about, to cross sports, how is he not in the same boat as Tua? Like, what does one more hit do to his career?
Great comparison.
Especially with how long it took for him to recover last year, and health should be at the forefront. It's a Rangers team that's still going to be dangerous on the power play. They have snipers over the ice, especially in the regular season. They moved the puck against Carolina in the postseason when it counted on that power play also, and they were good against Florida on the power play in that series and limited opportunities also. Florida was a better team, and one of the things about I don't know how much higher above the ceiling the Rangers have in the tank. Like that was always what was different with Florida. Like Florida had so much more firepower all around the ice than the Rangers did. Well, the Rangers have very good players, but how much more do they have to give you when you need them to deliver? It was nothing that was going to put them beyond Florida. They didn't have that gear. They didn't have that level to really threaten Florida. Kind of in a way that
Panarin's the guy that stands out as to who you're talking about at playoff time. Yeah.
But you need somebody else.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem was that the Rangers last year, and this is where growing and maturing as a D core can come in handy, you could pin the Rangers back in their own end by pressuring their D. Because when they have time, when they have space with the puck on their stick, they're extremely dangerous. However, if you apply the pressure to them, this is how Florida created those chances, force the turnovers, neutral zone, or on the exit, and then come back at you immediately, just come in the swarms. That's how they draw the penalties. That's how they get on the man advantage. That's where they really killed the Rangers and the Rangers penalty kill, which I think is where Fox was really exposed last postseason. And even during the latter stages of last season, I think that's where he was exposed. That's not his strength. And it's kind of a position that I'd like to see Laviolette try to move the pieces around to find who the good penalty kill D-men are in those situations, because the forwards are usually actually pretty good for the Rangers on the penalty kill. Just ask the Carolina Hurricanes about how the Rangers are when they're shorthanded, because they looked more dangerous with the puck on their stick a man down than Carolina did on their power play. But the forwards are getting older. Like Panarin's another year older. Zibanejad, who really disappointed in the postseason last year again, another year older. Kreider doesn't have that same explosion with his skating like he did when he was younger, but I mean, he's still a big body. He's still in front of the net. He's still one of the best net front presences that you're going to see in the Metropolitan Division and the Eastern Conference. Deflections on the power play. He's kind of evolving into that Anze Kopitar kind of forward who is just an absolute bear on the power play, because it's like, okay, move him, and you lose your defensive shape because you know you have to lend somebody. It's 4-on-3 on other parts of the ice because somebody has to mark him in front of the crease. So that gives you a lot of flexibility when you talk about the man advantage. Talking about pieces in the minor leagues, I would not. It's make or break, and for Capo Caco, just because of how the contract structures are going to be working out, you'd like to see him get more run and more chances on a third line that can threaten to score. But there are some players in the minors who are going to be chomping at the bit. Othman, for me, at least so far in this rookie camp, pre-training camp stretch, has kind of underwhelmed. Berard's been more noticeable. Edstrom's been very noticeable. I wouldn't be surprised if you're looking at a fourth line at some part of this year of Carrick, Rempe, and Edstrom, and that is just a massive humanity that's going to be bearing down at you with like an average height of 6'7".
Big, mean, physical, and nasty. That would be fun to watch, though.
Yeah, but like some good hands. Like they also like go to the net and try to get the deflections and take up space. So they do a lot of the dirty work, which is kind of what you want. And you want to see the development. I mean, you need Rempe, and I think he did actually in the postseason last year evolve from a caricature to a fourth line player.
Yeah.
Not just in there to be a punching bag.
Oh, he went to the front of the net with little tips and deflections, and that's what you want from him. Use your size, man. Screen the goalie. I mean, he's got no chance to see through you with the fucking. You're a giant, man.
But it's also you only learn that by getting ice time. Like you're still a young player. You not only you have to kind of grow into your body in a hockey sense. And I think that was kind of the underrated aspect with Lafreniere when you're buried on the third and fourth line and getting absolutely no power play time just because of the way the Ranger roster is constructed. So many of these other younger players on bad teams. The Rangers sent out that letter saying that they're going to strip down to an entire rebuild. They have back-to-back top 2 picks, and then they're in the postseason again. Like, there wasn't a very long rebuild. This wasn't, the San Jose Sharks or the Blackhawks or the Sabres or the Red Wings who have been rebuilding for a decade. Like, the Rangers had those 2 top picks and then just like, okay. And they didn't have like the power play. They didn't have the space to evolve and to grow into those roles, but they also weren't asked to. But on the other side of it, they weren't given the opportunity. I mean, one of the reasons that Jack Hughes still makes a tons of mistakes turning the puck over, resulting in odd man rushes the opportunities, he's not used to playing in that tight, responsible. He's not around the veterans that are playing in that role. So he has so much of the puck on his stick. I mean, this was Jack Eichel's problem in Buffalo. Then you get to a team in Vegas where he has to do less, but he can do more with less. With less responsibility, he can do more and show more, and fitting into that role. But that's tough to evolve in that type of role because you don't get the run. You don't get the opportunity to make mistakes. You get punished and replaced by a veteran in the lineup because that's what a coach like Gallant wanted. See what a coach like Laviolette wants. But Lafreniere was a year ahead of Kakko on that scale. So he's going to have about 3 months, but would it surprise me if Capo Kakko is traded around the deadline to bring in a piece that the Rangers view to replace Riley Smith because he ultimately, like Blake Wheeler, doesn't fit the right wing line that they're asking him to? It's not outside the realm of possibility because you expect the Rangers to be in that spot. But it is funny hearing people talk about Shesterkin's great season. And for 3.5 months of last year, there was a debate about whether Jonathan Quick should be the Rangers' number 1 because Jonathan Quick was putting up better results and the team was playing better hockey in front of him. And one of the reasons why, oh, by the way, the President's Trophy winners of last year, the New York Rangers, got that spot was because of how Jonathan Quick played in the first 3 months of the year. Like, those points don't go away. You don't give them back just because your starting goalies sucked. And it helped with the run in the postseason because you know what? Less was asked of your number 1 goalie early in the year, and you let him get hot. You let him find a groove later in the year. You have the opportunity. You have the net because of the points accrued. So it's really weird how you, like, the mindset of, like, how last year worked of, like, oh, Shesterkin, great year. It's just like, well, I mean, look back at the stats, ordinary, but it was 2 different seasons.
And now Laviolette should know this year coming into the year, don't force Igor out there every night if he doesn't have it early in the season. Let him work through his struggles and give Quick the net for a good period of time. And in the meantime he'll eventually figure it out and you'll keep him fresher and ready at playoff time. He'll be, won't be as fatigued.
If you are a team like the New York Rangers, it's really any top team. There is absolutely no reason for your goalie to play any more than 2/3 of your games through the first 4 months of the season. I'm sorry. It's not worth it. The return on investment is not good. And like October isn't that busy. You work it in, if you have a game every other night, take that opportunity and put Quick in for a start. So Shesterkin has 2 starts in a week instead of 3. Those things that you just want to keep onto that wear and tear. Though there is the question of, like, are the Rangers going to give Shesterkin the big deal? Because there's only 1 more year on the contract after this, and do you want to? At the rate, is the cap going to go up at enough of a rate to make it worthwhile to give Shesterkin the deal that he'll demand and he will receive in the NHL?
Yeah, it's great stuff, John. Very great analysis of obviously a team you not only love, but you know them inside and out. And I mean, it's I agree. Right wing, top line, that's a question area for me. Is it Riley Smith, Vegas, Golden Knights tenure, or is it Riley Smith of Pittsburgh last year? Which was definitely a disappointing return that the Penguins got as far as his performance. The blue line, Adam Fox, you're right. Penalty killing does all the things offensively at a very high level, but there's still that area of that side of the puck too in his own end and the penalty kill to work on that. I really like Braden Schneider, honestly. He's the one that I think he's gotten better, more comfortable, more confident. He can he can play sturdy, sound in his own end. And obviously Kay Andre's had a big jump in his play too. The last year and a bit, but those 2 guys I think are 2 that you can say, wow, they're going to be huge components of that back end this year. for the New York Rangers, without a doubt, especially with the question marks about Fox's defensive ability, with the question marks of Trouba, Alka-bombing somebody along the boards and getting suspended for 10 or 20 games or whatever. Because, there'll be some kind of incident or 2 or 3.
Don't excite Ranger fans like that, Ian. Don't excite Ranger fans. They wanted Trouba out of town during the summer because they were tired of watching him, and that was blocked. And the difference between being a fan and you're dealing with human beings and their contracts as a general manager and how you're reflected as an organization. I'm interested to see how this Four Nations face-off works during the year, but what I do know is that it really results in a very condensed December for the Rangers schedule, with some really weird spots, because nothing beats playing Los Angeles at home on a Saturday and then in St. Louis the next night, which, I mean, I get back-to-backs and they happen, but New York and St. Louis are not that close. Like, they're not, like, that's still a 4-hour flight. And this is like the second time in 3 years.
Like you can't do better than that. I know you got the Four Nation face-off in February. It's an 11-day tournament, but still, you're going to cram it to that extent?
Yeah, I mean, that's, and I feel like 2 years ago at the end of the year, the Rangers had almost, I think it was a similar back-to-back where they played LA or Tampa Bay on Wednesday night, and the next night, Thursday night, they were in St. Louis. And it's just like, and I'm going to pick the St. Louis Blues to win that game in that spot, because that spot sucks.
Yeah, they do have a lot of. I'm looking at the schedule by a glance, and they have a couple of spots. One in November, in particular, they have a 4-game trip out west, only to come home, play St. Louis on the 25th, and then have to head back on the road against Carolina, and then that Philly game, which I think is the Thanksgiving game.
That's the Black Friday game in Philly.
Yeah, Black Friday. Yeah. So, and there's another spot in December where they have a home game, a day game, sandwiched in between a pair of 3-game road trips. So yeah, they definitely do have some weird things going on, some weird spots that are created in November and December.
Look at this bullshit in December. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Look at this crap in December for this poor team. Look at it. December 11 at Buffalo, home for one game to LA, and then back-to-back at St. Louis. Then you have at Nashville, at Dallas, home for 1 game against Carolina, then road, New Jersey, Tampa, Florida for 3, home for 1, road for 2. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
We're making them travel after every friggin' game for like almost a full month of December.
I mean, traveling from home to at New Jersey is not exactly the same effect. However, it's a 1:00 game on that Monday.
Yeah.
Which on December 23rd, which to my understanding isn't a holiday anywhere. So, like, what is that turn? I mean, it's going to be all Ranger fans. I know what the turnout's going to be. It's a game at Prudential Center, but like, it's the Rangers' second home. But I mean, they just have so many of these weird spots. It's like, all right, the road trip for St. Louis, Nashville, and Dallas makes sense. That's usually what that road trip is. But it's usually not, the first game of it is usually not the second of a back-to-back where the first game's at home. Right. Like, so, and like, I understand how Christmas messes with the schedule there to make it with the days off, but there are too many kind of weird spots on the schedule like that where I'm just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We're going to find some dandy scheduling spots this year. We really will, because you're right. It felt like it was compressed enough last year with some of these. Like, that's how many times did we see this crap last year where they were home for 1 game, road for 4, home for 1 game, road for 3, home for 1 game, road for 4.
A lot of it is MSG availability with all the holiday tournaments and the Knicks and like
these tournaments coming once we get into March. Yeah.
Mariah Carey doing her Christmas show and all that stuff. Yeah.
Usually they put that at Radio City. Usually they're kind enough about that. But even like the Big East tournament, that's just a weekend. So like that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So like it usually doesn't affect the Rangers that much. And I think that week they play Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at home, and then or Sunday, Monday, Wednesday at home. But it's just like, and I understand like the Metro, I should never complain as a Metro Division fan because the road trips and the travel scenarios aren't nearly as bad as what they get at West. But even so, when the Rangers go out to California, we play Anaheim and San Jose on back-to-back nights. Why can't LA and Anaheim be the back-to-back nights with San Jose separate? Like, it's just trying to add like that little angle of like, oh, you need a little bit more travel on this back-to-back. And just make it a little bit more difficult. So it's just some weird quirks. But the Metro Division overall is kind of, you look obviously with what's happened with Columbus this offseason. And I'm just thinking of like the change of leadership, both general manager and head coach, and then obviously the tragedy involving Johnny Gaudreau, which
Yeah.
irritates me and angers me more than
Yeah.
anything. Carolina
I don't think
changed
you're
the
alone
GM,
there. Yeah.
especially as a Jersey guy. Like between Brooklyn, New Jersey, my entire life, and just anywho,
Yeah.
don't want to say something I regret. But Washington with the change in GM, Carolina with the change of leadership. The Devils adding a goalie, but their decor is still suspect. Let's call it that.
Suspect. Oh, it's better. It is. With Pesci there, it's better. With Dylan with a little sandpaper, it's better. But how much better is the question. Yeah.
Yeah, but even when you talk about adding Dylan, I've never. One of the differences for the Rangers, what makes them so difficult to play against, is that the Rangers decor skating wise is probably the best skating decor in the Metro.
Oh yeah,
Division
1
now.
through 6 they can move.
Yeah.
There's no fucking pylons.
Well, Trouba,
even
but
he's
at least,
not the worst skater.
but,
Yeah.
But as if he's a third or a second, D pairing, and he is paired with somebody who can skate. So, like, you can be a stay-at-home if you have somebody on the pairing, but there are just a lot of Soviet tanks on the blue line in the Metropolitan Division. I think it's one of the reasons that Pittsburgh struggles. Even on their power play, it's just like, well, you're playing 3-on-4. Like, you're down with the forwards, and your forwards weren't that fast to begin with. Like, there's just a lack of speed. The Caps lack speed. The Islanders lack speed.
Yep.
So you just look at it, and the Rangers are a better skating team than a lot of them. Columbus can skate. It will just be a matter of them putting it all together this year. But I'm Philly. I'm probably higher on Philly coming into this year than I am a lot of other teams in the Metropolitan Division. I think they're trending upward. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm already have a ticket in on Columbus over their point total for this year. I think they're going to be galvanized by what happened in this offseason. I like the young talent, and I just think they're going to skate rings around. I think they're going to give people a lot of problems in the Eastern Conference with their skating.
Offensively, they will. I do like what they're building up front. And Fantilli will be better. I like Kent Johnson. Yeah, you're right. They're up for it's defense still, and Leakin still.
I think it's underrated how vulnerable and how much turnover there might be for teams making the playoffs out of the Metropolitan Division this year.
Hey, Flyers, they're this close to making it last year when everything almost went wrong for them. And Tortorella somehow, what a magic job he did to almost get him in.
Well, I mean, but that was great start, and then the last 3 months of the season happened.
Yeah,
where they just fell apart. So it was a lot of smoke and mirrors early, and that's tough to do over the long season.
But this division, it's Tupperware, right? Like there's the Rangers at the top, there's Columbus at the bottom, and then you just shake everything, and eventually, it settles out to wherever 2 through 7 goes. That's the way I kind of look at the Rangers.
So many different combinations, right? Each time you shake it. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Carolina's still up there. I mean, there's a lot of turnover, but they're steady. They have a system. They're in a way they're kind of plug and play and boring in that way. That's why they lose the postseason, because they're predictable. But predictable works in the regular season. Predictable goes a long way when you're just solid and steady. You'll look and they'll have their 98 to 106 points. They'll be there. They'll be in the playoffs. They'll just be solid. It's just when you have to, what can you show me that you haven't shown me already? What's your second trick? And how are you going to change that? And, we've yet to see it.
Yeah, that's true, and that's been the stumbling block for Carolina. You're right, is the playoffs. So, John, before we wrap it up, is there any thing you want to mention? Is there any futures bets, any season-long player props of any kind, or awards props you're interested in involving the New York Rangers?
I like the Lafreniere props. I'm really looking for. I think Panarin's going to go over his points, but I don't like going over inflated totals like that because he's just so. I mean,
that's why I like Lafreniere. It's a lower number on both his points and his goals, and he's got the contract year that he's playing for, and that's going to really.
I am curious to see how the bottom 6 pans out for the Rangers this year, and I like Keandre Miller to go over his points this year. I think he's going to have a good offensive year.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see him more on the power play with his
we were talking about Matt Rempe earlier. At BetMGM, you can get his points. He has over 7.5. Do you think that they'll, be able to get over that? I think he can do that.
7.5 points or goals?
Points.
It's over 7.5 points.
Yeah.
Yes. I think he's going to be utilized as a net front presence. And if you
do too.
I mean, Trouba still has you have a lot of Rangers from the blue line who can move the puck in and shoot. And if you're going to get a deflection, even with the fourth line, during a season, you're going to be playing 10 to 12 minutes a game on the fourth line if you're doing this right. And if Laviolette rolls the lines as he did last year. I think the Rangers are going to win the Metropolitan Division. The problem is it's hard to want to bank on that because you don't need to win the Metropolitan Division to get in to be in the top 3 in the playoffs. So what are the goals? Is that necessary in order to achieve your goals for the year? It's not something you're going to push for. If it happens, it happens. But I don't think they're going to strive for it. I just think they're going to, try to accumulate points and get in the playoffs. You just want an X next to your name at the end of the season. What happens from there? What happens from there?
Especially in this sport, you get in the playoffs, you never know what can happen.
Especially with your goalies, Igor.
Especially when you got Igor Shesterkin. But yeah, I'm looking at their overall numbers last year. Offensively, they were top, good, top 10 defensively, top 3 power play and penalty kill during the regular season last year.
That's going to regress on the penalty kill.
Yeah, it could. How about the power play? Can it stay pretty high up there? You think?
I do, because you have puck moving defensemen.
Yes.
I mean, in the regular season, that just makes your power. It just makes it so different compared to with so many of these penalty kills that are just so stationary. The Rangers challenged that. I mean, they even executed against Florida and Carolina in the postseason, like at that high level. I don't see why the Rangers wouldn't be able to move the puck around on the man advantage again this year.
Yeah, that was there were little small instances even in the playoffs where the power play did go a little bit cold, but you think of that first round, but now part of that was Washington, but still.
I mean, that is one of the worst playoff teams we have ever seen.
And I know you said that a few times. Yeah.
And they sucked against them, but they still did it in 5. Like they were so bad, and it's just like, oh, they still swept them.
Yeah.
Like, what does that say? You're like looking, it's just like, the games are so bloody boring. It's just like you never felt threatened. It's like facing your 6-year-old little brother when you're 24. Just like, that's cute.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Like Ovi looked like a shell.
Yeah,
like he couldn't skate. Like it was just like, what are you? Dylan McElrath's on D.
Something tells me Ovi will be a big talking point when we get to the Washington Capitals. Their season preview, certainly when that comes. John, great stuff. Anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for all the work that you do. Looking forward to the regular season. Hey, the Jets are 1-1, and with the way the AFC East is turning out, who knows? Maybe they'll actually make it to hockey season this year before eliminated from playoff contention, which is an improvement over last year.
They still got to rein in the penalties, though. God, that was bad yesterday.
Yeah.
But and I think ultimately we're looking. Florida's still going to be tough, but I think there's a lot of I like to see this change in the NHL right now with the skating, the skill, and the talent that's on the ice. It makes for a more exciting product. So I just can't wait to see NHL coaches try to drain all the life and excitement from all the players that are going around. This sounds like Canadian junior development, where we just try to suck all the life and joy and joie de vivre out of the game in order to conform and play defensively responsible hockey, because that's what's good for the organization. Fuck that. I want goals. I want points. I want flash. I want skill. Yeah, I want 1970s Canadians hockey. Like, let's see the speed. Let's see the skill. Let's see the goals. I don't need to see the goons. I want the talent on the ice. It makes for a better product.
Yep. It's like I said, well said. And I know you're talking to two Ice Guys co-hosts and co-founders here, Ian and Alex here, that love our overs. So and the first period overs, especially in Alex's case. So I don't think there'll be too many complaints.
Speaking of over, I would be remiss if I did not mention. I would really like this to be a special Rangers season with the career of Sam Rosen.
Sam, that's right. I almost forgot.
Of course.
Over at the end of the season.
40 years. The fact that he's ending on exactly 40 years as the TV voice of the New York Rangers. Just an incredible career. It's a power play goal. And the '94 Cup final call still gives you chills. This one will last a lifetime, and has lasted a lifetime because they haven't won it since.
Yeah, I know. I think you kind of burdened us with that responsibility. It's been the albatross around the Rangers' neck. But I think, as somebody who was spoiled living up in the greater New York City metropolitan area with Jigs on the Islanders, Sam on the Rangers, and Doc on the Devils, and doing the play-by-play,
Good trifecta.
I grew up with Sam and JD, and you'll struggle to find just a better pairing. And growing up and listening to hockey, and just one of the things, and it's your home broadcaster. There's always going to be a degree of homerism within it.
Yeah.
Sam is clearly a Ranger fan, but there is a respect for the skill that he still sees on the ice. That for me always makes it special and makes it not seem like, obviously he wants the Rangers to do well. It's clear, it's the passion within him, lived for what he grew up with. But it's also, there is this respect for the game and the skill that he watches and good play on the ice that is always there in the call, even when done by an opponent. And I think for 40 years, and even if his vision is not what it used to be and he mixes up names and stumbles over it, but I still think there is a respect and a professionalism with Sam Rosen that if he wanted to go on for another 5 years, he could. Obviously respect the decision and how much time and travel and effort and energy that it takes in order to keep up with the NHL. But I hope the Rangers have a special season for Sam, because if anybody deserves it from the announcer's booth, he's definitely up there.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah,
no, incredible career. Always hits the high note on the bigger moments more often than not. What about the 5 goals or whatever it was that Zibanejad had? I remember that night. Just that was later in his career, just the last couple of years. And, I know once in a while, maybe behind the play a little bit, but he's he's going to be 80 pretty soon. He's been around doing it a long time. There's going to be the odd, snafu. I get that. But in terms of the big moment, he's still hitting those high notes, I notice, even in the latter years.
I mean, he called Rangers playoff games last year. Like, he called Kreider's third period natural hat trick on radio for the Rangers. So, I mean, if you can keep up and still do, I mean, this is his call. Like, he was not being forced out by anybody. Like, he made the decision 40 years. No, they wouldn't, and they wouldn't. And it was kind of like the handshake, like Vince Scully with the Dodgers, the handshake, well, you do what you want to do. And the Rangers were always going to give him that latitude. For MSG Network, it's their call.
He wanted to get to 40 because this is his exact bang on the nose 40th season with the New York Rangers. What a way to go out! 40 years exactly.
So, and I mean, it's also you look at the announcers that we grew up with. How many are left?
Yeah, that's
and I mean, just you turn back with Bob Cole passing, and it's just like this generation of broadcasters that were the soundtracks for really all the major moments. Doc retiring.
Pat Foley, Rick
Pat
Jenneret.
Foley retiring, Rick Jenneret passing. Even Jack Edwards with the Bruins, so many of those.
Yeah, there might even be an odd moment or two where I'm saying, I'm missing him giving one of the opponent goons shit.
He was over the top, but you know what? He never diminished the rivalry between the Boston Bruins, and the Montreal Canadiens, or the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs when he was calling a game.
And he loves it, and he's passionate. You got
to, and did he go over the top? And I feel bad for him because it was taken away by something that doctors still can't diagnose.
Sure,
he got fucked over by this, and is he my cup of tea? He's definitely an original, which, I have this soft spot for Hawk Harrelson. I have this soft spot for the originals. And, is he John Forsland? No, but you know what? I wouldn't be asking for him to be either. The original's fine. I no replacements, no others. It's just Jack and only Jack. That's fine.
I know Alex is happy about the new voice of the Boston Bruins on television, Judd Surratt.
Judd Surratt,
Who's calling? Forgive me, I didn't check up on who's calling Columbus now.
It's Steve Mears. He did Penguins television for just a little bit. Yeah. So, and he's the new Columbus voice. Okay. Yeah.
So, and who jumped into Pittsburgh then?
Pittsburgh, the radio moved to TV.
Josh Getzoff, I think is his name. Getzoff, I think is his name.
And then they got the new radio guy.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So So everything kind of shifted with that.
Yeah, it's just Josh Getzoff. This will be his second year on television, I believe, now for Pittsburgh, and he'll be working with a combo of what's his name on the Colby Armstrong and not Ray Bork, Phil Bork. Yeah, Phil Bork. Yeah. But that's Pittsburgh, and of course Chicago. You've got Rick Ball to look forward to this year in the Windy City. Yeah,
for sure.
Good stuff. Yeah, no doubt.
Because I do wonder, because I think Kenny's just going to slide over to TV for the Rangers, but I wouldn't be surprised if Alex Faust was doing some radio for the Rangers last year too. So
he'll be in the conversation.
He'll
Depends on how much is on Kenny's plate. Kenny's still doing Fox NFL. Kenny's still doing NHL TNT. And if he becomes the full-time television, that's going to be a lot. And he does fill in Knicks, and he does once in a while, briefly, some MLB for Fox. It's a lot on his plate. That
it is. Well, I mean, he is the Rangers play-by-play on radio.
Yeah,
like he's the number one radio guy. LaGreca fills in.
Yeah.
When Kenny's doing his number of things. So. Yeah. I mean, I think Kenny will get the first opportunity with it, and I think he's the heir apparent for it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they say, Kenny, you're so busy, you keep on the radio, and we'll put Alex Faust on as a full-time television guy, especially because, Faust is
Alex Faust was this close, apparently. It was down to him and Judd. And we just decided we'll keep it in-house because Judd's, paid his dues. He's been on the radio for all these years. But it was close. Apparently, it was a tough, excruciating decision from what I read from the Bruins brass, because they really liked Alex too. But like I said, they couldn't have gone wrong either way. It's a great call either way. Yeah.
I think Faust is a Brooklyn boy. Ultimately,
I know.
I think that's where he started.
Yep. No doubt. He's going to have an opportunity to be close to home if he were to be involved with the Rangers full-time at some point. But Sam Rosen, well-deserved career, incredible career, 40 years, and maybe Magic will be in the air one last year there, and a cup is raised at Madison Square Garden, and Sam Rosen's swan song. We'll have to wait and see. But there you have it. That's the New York Rangers. Alex B. Smith, John Massey, thanks. Great stuff. I'm Ian Cameron. This has been the New York Rangers preview as 32 teams in 32 days rolls along right here on the ice, guys.